But anyhow, my only point is that, it's nice to be able to talk to a medical doctor that has enough knowledge of systems interactions to be able to sort of see through the gray area, but not hang his hat like religion on a study or two.
And I think it's a lot of my perspective is informed by this ancestral view.
Mm-hmm.
The question that I always end up asking is, why would a nutrient that has been a part of our fundamental food, animal foods, for our whole evolution be bad for us?
Yeah.
Why would a nutrient like choline, that is clearly valuable in humans, that makes membranes, that makes neurotransmitters, also be killing us? I don't think that would happen in the natural world.
Well, that goes right back to cholesterol too.
Exactly, and we can talk about that.
That's like the biggest hoax on the fucking planet.
Yes, and the cholesterol thing drives me crazy. I'll just say a few words on that, and maybe we can come back to it. Cholesterol is a steroid molecule that is packaged into lipoproteins, one of which is LDL.
Mm-hmm.
But colloquially, the term cholesterol refers to many of these lipoproteins carrying cholesterol and triglycerides in the human body. And within Western medicine, there is a prevailing idea that LDL cholesterol, quote, causes heart disease, causes plaque formation in the arteries. And this to me is absurd on so many levels. There's a whole chapter in my book about this.
Good.
And I break it down in detail, but just at a very basic level, let's just back up for a moment and realize that LDL, low density lipoprotein, which is made from IDL, which is made from VLDL, serves a crucial role in the human body, both in transporting nutrients throughout the body, specifically the cholesterol backbone, which forms all of our steroid hormones.
Mm-hmm.
For you to have testosterone, for anyone to have
Absolutely.
estrogen, you need LDL.
And the cell wall.
Exactly. It's in every cell membrane. Cholesterol, the actual cholesterol backbone, is used to make bile salts as well, which helps us digest all of our food and emulsify fats.
And detoxify the liver.
Yes. And so this molecule transports vital nutrients throughout the body. And people don't know this, LDL participates in the immune response. So LDL actually acts as a sponge for bacterial toxins, whether it's endotoxin, which is lipopolysaccharide, or the alpha toxin from Staph aureus.
That's amazing.
And they've done studies in mice where they will increase the amount of LDL. The mice are much more resistant to infection by these organisms. They decrease LDL. The mice die much more quickly when they're exposed to gram-negative or gram-positive bacteria.
Wow.
It's crazy. And then similarly, there's a condition in humans called Smith-Lemli-Opitz syndrome, which is a genetic condition in which LDL is very low because there's a defect in the cholesterol synthesis pathway, which is called the mevalonate pathway. And those people, if they don't die at birth, suffer from massive infections. And how do they treat it? They give them cholesterol.
Yeah.
They actually give them cholesterol so that it can be packaged into LDL so that their LDL levels will go up and they can participate in the immune response. So if we just imagine that,
yes,
why would a molecule that is central to our immune system be killing us? There has to be more to the story.
Totally central to so many things, as you've just pointed out. And if I remember right, I think it's the cholesterol craze that led people to taking the yolks out of eggs.
It is.
I mean, that's like, well, I think I already made a point about it. It's just like, well, it's as bad as eating muscle meats and throwing the liver and the kidneys and the rest of it away.
And yeah, egg yolks are a fantastic source of choline, and we need cholesterol in our diet. We can make a lot of cholesterol, but cholesterol in the diet is clearly beneficial for humans in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Probably. And there are so many other good nutrients in egg yolks. Why would that be bad for us? Why would LDL be bad for us? If we actually dive just a little deeper in the LDL rabbit hole, and then we'll come back to the animal nutrient conversation, so much of the literature around LDL is epidemiology. It has to be. But the epidemiology considers the population as a whole, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at epidemiology studies, which are studies that are based on just surveys, they're not intervention studies. There's never been an intervention study where we give people more LDL and we see them get heart disease, right? So when we're studying cholesterol and LDL specifically, the majority of what we're looking at is epidemiology. And if we look at epidemiology across the board, there are some epidemiology studies that show a correlation between levels of LDL and the incidence of heart disease in populations. But what is so fascinating is that if you take that same data from a study like the Framingham study, for instance,
right,
and you stratify that data in a way that gives you a sense of insulin resistance or insulin sensitivity. Meaning you can take that one line, you draw this graph, right? So on the x-axis is LDL, goes from 100 to 220 milligrams per deciliter. This graph is in my book. On the y-axis is relative risk of coronary artery disease.
Mm-hmm.
And you can draw a line. But then if you split that line into 4 lines based on level of HDL, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're saying, what is your risk of heart disease at a given LDL if your HDL is 25, 45, 55, or 85?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Or maybe it's 45, 55, 65, or 85 are the 4 things. Does that make sense? So you're looking at 3 variables now. So
Right.
we're taking the same data, the exact same study, we're adding one more variable, and you see a completely different picture emerge. And this is what's so fascinating. People who have low HDL, there's a very strong correlation between LDL and coronary artery disease. People that have high HDL, that is probably a very good proxy for insulin sensitivity, right? Who is insulin resistant? People with low HDL, that is the dyslipidemiology, this dyslipidemia of then that is metabolic dyslipidemia, right? If you have low HDL, high triglycerides.
Mm-hmm.
If you have high HDL, low triglycerides, that's you and I.
Okay.
That is people who are insulin sensitive. And in those people, in the exact same study, there is really no correlation between LDL and incidence of coronary artery disease. I have this graph in my book. All these lines have completely different slopes, and the bottom line with HDL at 85 is essentially flat.
You realize you're never going to get a job as a drug manufacturer because you're throwing all the tricks out the freaking window. And how are we going to sell drugs if you keep talking like this?
Well, that to me is that really clarifies it. And the take home with regard to LDL, I go into much more detail about this in my book, is that context is everything.
Sure is.
Context is everything, and insulin sensitivity is everything.
Yeah.
I think in people who are insulin resistant, that is those who have inflammation, those who are diabetic, those who have evidence of insulin insensitivity or insulin resistance, LDL is fuel for the fire. I don't think LDL ever causes the fire, but I think LDL can be fuel for the fire.
I have a question on LDL. Didn't you mention just a minute ago it was important in detoxification?
Well, for immunologic activation.
Okay, well, how might that play in when we've got more toxicity in people in the environment than we've ever had?
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't that raise your LDL levels?
Hard to say. The things that raise LDL are varied. What we know is that ketogenic physiology, which we can talk about, low carbohydrate physiology raises LDL. You know what else raises LDL?
Stress.
Fasting.
Oh, okay.
And that's a normal physiologic response.
Well, then the body's got its chemistry set and is doing what it got to do.
Yeah, it raises LDL during fasting. And so then the other question becomes, are those in the community telling me that something that would have happened frequently to our ancestors was killing them?
Right.
That is fasting, periods of fasting, 2 to 3 days between kills.
Yeah.
That's increasing something in their body that's causing them to die. That doesn't sound like a very good evolutionary adaptation. That doesn't make sense to me intuitively.
No.
So yeah, and I actually, one of the best quotes I saw on Instagram recently was, and a doctor was answering a patient's question. The patient said, "Will a ketogenic diet raise my bad cholesterol?" And he said, "You don't have bad cholesterol. You have bad information."
Yeah, exactly.
And I love it because there is no such thing as bad cholesterol. LDL is not bad cholesterol. HDL has been called good cholesterol, LDL bad cholesterol. They're all good cholesterol.
Yeah.
They're all delivering. What you have is bad information. What's really bad? Insulin resistance and inflammation. How do we avoid insulin resistance? That's a whole rabbit hole. But the things that cause insulin resistance are inflammation, which can come from a variety of things. It can come
Many
from
things.
dysbiosis, stress, toxins, heavy metals. But I think that the thing that afflicts most humans on this planet with insulin resistance is overconsumption of mixed macronutrient calories. And what I mean by that is overconsumption of both fat and carbohydrates together is a brilliant formula for insulin resistance. If you are not eating, and that's a caloric surplus.
Mm-hmm.
So if we eat a caloric surplus that has both carbohydrates and fat in it, our body will become insulin resistant as a physiologic defense mechanism. We say, whoa, whoa, whoa. It starts in the adipose tissue. The adipose tissue says, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't need any more.
Yeah.
I don't need any more. You've already stuffed a whole bunch of stuff in me. That combination of carbohydrates and fat, if we're over our caloric needs, that makes us insulin resistant. And the way to fix that is to either focus on eating fat or carbohydrates. I think you can create a healthy diet that has one or the other, or being careful not to overeat calories.
I was just going to say, just eat less and eat high quality food.
Exactly.